Good morning, everyone. So I'll start with my good school song, and after that, I'll be showing a weekly where it has captured about abled, which ma'am was just talking about. So you all also have a look how it is, how it was. And should I start the song, sir?
Yes,
Yeah,
Manisha.
yeah.
We are here at my good school. Things here are so cool. Together we learn, together we create, together we meditate. Everyone is welcome. Teachers here are awesome. We learn good values, we learn many skills. We soar above the hills. Let's shout it out, hey, let's all be proud, hey, hats off to my good school. Just what we need, hey, for us to succeed, hey, are all here in my good school.
So that was my good school song, and I'll be sharing a weekly, a newsletter. So this was the platform abled. And ma'am, can you please let us know what is happening here? Ma'am, you're on mute.
Manisha, just give me a second.
Sure, ma'am. So you were there?
No, I wasn't there.
Okay. So do you wish to read this?
Okay, Manisha, ABLE was a summit on inclusion. And for those who don't understand what inclusion means, it is uh, the need to make our institutions, schools, colleges, workplaces, public places friendly towards people who have any kind of a disability, whether it is an intellectual disability or a physical disability. So, this is what this summit was all about. So, it was about enabling people. So, that's why the summit was called ABLE. And you can see there are people on wheelchairs on the stage. There is a lady there in the in the brown color kurta. She is actually uh, translating everything that the main speaker, also a disabled person, is speaking through sign language for those who cannot hear to be able to hear. So you can also see that the pinwheel, the whole decoration was with pinwheels, because the pinwheel has a particular significance. Pinwheel needs the wind for its movement. And so, what was being conveyed to everybody was that even all these people who have special needs need external support to carry on with their everyday tasks. So, that is why it was a symbolic representation of that. So, the weekly is about the ABLE Summit. So let's read what is there here. Welcome to edition number 77. The number 77 holds different meanings across numerology, spirituality, and religion, most commonly symbolizing intuition, inner wisdom, a major spiritual awakening, and divine alignment. And we saw all this come alive with wonderful stories of people with differing abilities who are changing the world one story at a time. In April 2026, Priyanka Agarwal scripted history by becoming the second visually impaired Indian woman and the first from Karnataka to complete the grueling trek to the Everest Base Camp in Nepal. Key details of her historic journey. The expedition, a 43-year-old software engineer from Bengaluru, Priyanka accomplished the 110-kilometer trek over 9 days, navigating up to an altitude of 5,364 meters. The challenges: navigating with approximately 10% vision due to progressive retinitis pigmentosa. She endured sub-zero temperatures dropping to minus 20 degrees centigrade, unpredictable hailstorms, and narrow boulder-strewn pathways. Support system. The expedition was part of India's largest inclusive trek to EBC, Everest Base Camp, that is, organized by the Tinkesh Ability Foundation. She completed the trek alongside her husband, Dimpesh Bhattewara, making them the first Indian
I think maybe Brinda's connection is gone off. Yeah. So just if you put the cursor there, I'll start reading, Manisha. Yeah. The expedition was a part of India's largest inclusive trek to Everest Base Camp organized by the Tinkesh Ability Foundation. She completed the trek alongside her husband, Dimpesh Bhattewara, making them the first Indian interabled couple to reach the milestone. The Able Conference, hosted by School News as the 10th anniversary edition of the Global EdFest, was a landmark 3-day summit held at Clark's Amer, Jaipur from 6th to 8th August 26. The event marked India's first education summit entirely dedicated to disability inclusion in mainstream schools. Moving away from traditional charity or sympathy, the ABLE theme asserted that individuals are not disabled or differently abled, but simply able. The summit convened over 500 school leaders, policymakers, assistive tech innovators, and change makers to build a practical roadmap for inclusive education. Right. And now, the awards which were given out, and I want to just uh, tell everybody that Brinda Ma'am was one of the recipients of the award, the School News Awards, and she got the Snehlata Prize, as you know, for furthering the love of reading. Okay, so takeaway from the event: inclusion as a mindset. True inclusion is a structural and cultural shift, not merely building physical infrastructure. Okay, let me read that again. True inclusion is a structural and cultural shift, not merely building physical infrastructure. Number two is dignity driven technology. The event showcased innovations like Annie, the world's first self learning braille device, emphasizing that assistive technology must empower users with independence. The Willingness Project. School News launched this initiative to distribute adaptive prosthetic hands, showcasing a commitment to tangible, life changing community support. And number four, systems change. Beyond the classroom, the summit initiated efforts to make Jaipur's public spaces more accessible through civic audits. Is Brinda Ma'am back?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
back.
Okay, back to you.
Yeah. So AI and tech-enabled learning in giving humans an edge to overcome the challenges of different abilities and experience the joy of learning.
so, ma'am, do you wish to say something about this page or your
So
experience?
yes, definitely. So the stories that we heard from all these people who were the real heroes um, and heroines of those 3 days. It was something that shook the core of our existence. So, since we have a lot of students over here, I wish to tell you how there were so many young girls and boys who came to tell us their stories of how they had battled their difficulties, their deficiencies, and their disabilities and had won. And they were not looking for any kind of a sympathy from anybody, but what they wanted to say was that they are just as normal as any so called normal person is, and that they can also do all the things that children like those who have everything intact can do. So we had a student who was visually impaired, more than one, but there was a young boy who actually played cricket over there to show us that even though he cannot really see, but he has his other faculties in place and he could do that. We had a gentleman there who did not have hands, and he was again a para cricketer. So he showed us how he could bowl with his legs. We had another swimmer who had no arms, and he was also a swimmer, a para swimmer who had participated in the Commonwealth Games recently. So, these were all stories that brought so much hope to all of us, and it told us that there exists a world which is beyond all the things that we feel that we want and we need, and that we need to look at the other side of things too. So it was a real awakening, and it really moved a lot of us. And there were a lot of people over here who run various kinds of institutions. They produce various kinds of devices to make life easy for all these specially abled students and adults. So we had a lot of them exhibiting their products too and explaining how this can be done. And a lot of school leaders were there so that they can be sensitized to make their schools disable enabled, or rather their schools would become places where movement for all these people, some on wheelchairs, some moving with crutches, etc., would become easier. All right. Yes, Manisha ma'am. So
many of us are not aware that every week we are taking out a weekly, and whatever is happening at my good school, along with the Teachers Academy and other parts, the workshops you all are taking is all being taken here, and you all can subscribe for this. And every week it is going to come on your email, and then you all can read and understand what Good School Alliance is doing for all of us. So this is the books which is recommended for all of us to read, and it is very much available online, as well as in case you're not getting anywhere, you all can write down at the bookshop at Dehradun, so you all can get your copy from over there. And this has happened. Tom and Jerry was the chapter which was read during one of the
on Saturday. Yeah.
Yes. So ma'am also takes care of the Saturday, where the teachers, generally the adults are there, and they come and they share their ideas, they read their mind aloud and understand what reading is, how we are passionate about it, and how we all are on the same platform. So I'm just showing you a gist of what has happened throughout the week. So that's all about the book.
All right. So let's get back to reading a few pages today in whatever time we have. And Manisha ma'am, can we please increase the size of the font?
Is this good?
Yes. So I was very intrigued by these giant toads for a number of reasons. First, they appeared to be common species, yet they were blotched with the curious white patches on body and legs. Also, all other common toads I had seen had been only a quarter of the size of these monsters. Another curious thing was that I had found them together under the log. To find one such monster would have been unusual. But to find a pair sitting side by side like that was, I felt sure, a unique discovery. Sorry. I even wondered if they might turn out to be something quite new to science. Hopefully, I kept them imprisoned under, I think I've lost the line, under my bed until the following Thursday when Theodore arrived. Then I rushed breathlessly up to the bedroom and brought them down for him to see. Aha, Theodore observed, peering at them closely and prodding one with his forefinger. Yes, they are certainly very large specimens. He lifted one out of the box and placed it on the floor, where it sat staring at him mournfully, bulging and sagging like a blob of mildewed dough. Yes, said Theodore. They seem to be the common toad, though, as I say, they're exceptionally fine specimens. These curious marks are due to lack of pigmentation. I should think it is due to age, though, of course, I may be wrong. They must be a considerable age to have reached, to have attained such proportions. I was surprised, for I had never looked upon toads as being particularly long lived creatures. I asked Theodore what the usual age was that they attained. Well, it's difficult to say. There are no statistics to go on, he pointed out, his eyes twinkling. But I should imagine that ones as large as these might well be 12 or even 20 years old. They seem to have a great tenacity for life. I have read somewhere of toads being walled up in houses and so forth. And it appears that they must have been confined like that for a number of years. In one case, I believe it was something like 25 years. He lifted the other toad out of the box and set it down beside its companion. They sat side by side, gulping and blinking, their flabby sides wobbling as they breathed. Theodore contemplated them fully for a moment and then took a pair of forceps out of his waistcoat pocket. He strode into the garden and overturned several rocks until he found a large, moist, and liver-colored earthworm. He picked it up neatly with his forceps and strode back to the veranda. He stood over the toads and dropped the writhing earthworm onto the stone flags. It coiled itself into a knot and then slowly started to unravel itself. The nearest toad lifted its head, blinked its eyes rapidly, and turned slightly so that it was facing the worm. The worm continued to writhe like a piece of wool on a hot coal. The toad bent forward, staring down at it with an expression of extreme interest on its broad face. Aha, said Theodore, and smiled in his beard. The worm performed a particularly convulsive figure of 8, and the toad leant further forward with excitement. Its great mouth opened, the pink tongue flicked out, and the forepart of the worm was carried into the gaping maw. The toad shut its mouth with a snap, and most of the worm which hung outside coiled about wildly. The toad sat back and with great care proceeded to stuff the tail end of the worm into its mouth using its thumbs. As each section of thrashing worm was pushed in, the toad would gulp hard, closing its eyes with an expression as if of acute pain. Slowly but surely, bit by bit, the worm disappeared between the thick lips until at last there was only a fraction of an inch dangling outside, twitching to and fro. Said Theodore in an amused tone of voice. I always like watching them do that. It reminds me of those conjurers, that pull yards and yards of tapes of or colored ribbons out of their mouths. Only, of course, the other way round. The toad blinked, gulped desperately, its eyes screwed up, and the last bit of worm disappeared inside its mouth. I wonder, said Theodore meditatively, his eyes twinkling. I wonder if one could teach toads to swallow swords. It would be interesting to try. He picked up the toads carefully and placed them in their box. Not sharp swords, of course, he said, straightening up and rocking on his toes, his eyes gleaming. If the swords were sharp, you might get your toad in a hole. He chuckled quietly to himself, rasping the side of his beard with his thumb. So that's the end of that chapter. And it was indeed a very interesting chapter with a lot of adventures in it and a lot of information for us about geckos and mantids and toads, lastly. And we can move on to the next chapter, which is called The Talking Flowers. So let's see what he has to say this time about the flora of the region, right? I'm quite intrigued by the title, Talking Flowers. Let's see how flowers can talk. Yes, ma'am. It was not long before I received the unwelcome news that yet another tutor had been found for me. This time, it was a certain individual named Kralski, a person descended from an intricate tangle of nationalities, but predominantly English. The family informed me that he was a very nice man, and one who was, moreover, interested in birds. So we should get on together. I was not, however, the least impressed by this last bit of information. I had met a number of people who professed to be interested in birds and who had turned out, after careful questioning, to be charlatans who did not know what a hoopoe looked like or could not tell the difference between a black red start and an ordinary one. I felt certain that the family had invented this bird-loving tutor simply in an effort to make me feel happier about having to start work once again. I was sure that his reputation as an ornithologist would turn out to have grown from the fact that he once kept a cannery when he was 14. Therefore, I set off for town to my first lesson in the gloomiest possible frame of mind. Kralevsky lived in the top 2 stories of a square, mildewed old mansion that stood on the outskirts of the town. I climbed the wide staircase and with disdainful bravado rapped a sharp tattoo on the knocker that decorated the front door. I waited, glowering to myself and digging the heel of my shoe into the wine-red carpet with considerable violence. Presently, just as I was about to knock again, there came the soft pad of footsteps, and the front door was flung wide to reveal my new tutor. I decided immediately that Kralevsky was not a human being at all, but a gnome who had disguised himself as one by donning an antiquated but very dapper suit. He had a large, egg-shaped head with flattened sides that were tilted back against a smoothly rounded humpback. This gave him the curious appearance of being permanently in the middle of shrugging his shoulders and peering up into the sky. A long, fine bridged nose with widely flared nostrils curved out of his face, and his extremely large eyes were liquid and of a pale sherry color. They had a fixed, faraway look in them, as though their owner were just waking up out of a trance. His wide, thin mouth managed to combine primness with humor, and now it was stretched across his face in a smile of welcome, showing even but discolored teeth. Jerry Durrell, he asked, bobbing like a courting sparrow and flapping his large, bony hands at me. Jerry Durrell, is it not? Come in, my dear boy. Do come in. He beckoned me with a long forefinger, and I walked past him into the dark hall, the floorboards creaking protestingly under their mangy skin of carpet. Through here, this is the room we shall work in, fluted Kralski, throwing open a door and ushering me into a small, sparsely furnished room. I put my books on the table and sat down in the chair he indicated. He leaned over the table, balancing on the tips of his beautifully manicured fingers, and smiled at me in a vague way. I smiled back, not knowing quite what he expected. Friends, he exclaimed rapturously. It is most important that we are friends. I am quite certain we will become friends, aren't you? I nodded seriously, biting the inside of my cheeks to prevent myself from smiling. Friendship, he murmured, shutting his eyes in ecstasy at the thought. Friendship, that's the ticket. So before I go ahead, I want to know whether all of you know who an ornithologist is. You can write it in the chat box if you know who or what an ornithologist is. It's more who than what. No, ma'am. Okay. So an ornithologist is a person who studies birds and is an expert on birds, right? And so this new teacher was supposed to be an ornithologist. And when Gerald describes his physical appearance the first time he met him, he says he reminded him of a gnome, Gnome. The G is silent over there. It's pronounced as gnome. Now, those of you who have been fans of Enid Blyton would know what gnomes are, or who do we address as gnomes. So gnomes are, they're different kinds of beings which have funny hunched back, they're short in stature, and their ears are big and spread out, and they have an elongated head kind of a thing. That's how they're represented. Most of the time they're wearing a cap on their heads, which is like a nightcap. So that's how he describes this gentleman. And this gentleman seems to be a very friendly person. And when Gerald goes to him for the first time, he invites him and says it is best if we become friends, right? Manisha ma'am, should I continue to read? It is 11 and I'll be stepping into the next session.
So you can read a bit more, ma'am, no problem.
Okay, right. Yes, that's it, he said firmly. I'm sure we shall be friends. Your mother tells me that you have a great love of natural history. This, you see, gives us something in common straight away. A bond, as it were, eh? He inserted a forefinger and thumb into his waistcoat, drew out a large gold watch, and regarded it reproachfully. He sighed, replaced the watch, and then smoothed the bald patch on his head that gleamed like a brown pebble through his licheny hair. So licheny comes from the word lichen. Lichen is like moss, green color moss that settles on a wet surface. I am, by way of being an aviculturist, Albeit an amateur, he volunteered modestly, I thought perhaps you might care to see my collection. Half an hour or so with the feathered creatures will, I venture to think, do us no harm before we start work. Besides, I was a little late this morning, and one or two of them need fresh water. He led the way up a creaking staircase to the top of the house and paused in front of a green beige door. He produced an immense bunch of keys that jangled musically as he searched for the right one. He inserted it, twisted it, and twisted it round and drew open the heavy door. A dazzle of sunlight poured out of the room, blinding me, and with it came a deafening chorus of birdsong. It was as though Kralevsky had opened the gates of paradise in the grubby corridor at the top of his house. The attic was vast, stretching away across almost the whole top of the house. It was uncarpeted, and the only piece of furniture was a large deal table in the center of the room. But the walls were linked from floor to ceiling with row upon row of big, airy cages containing dozens of fluttering, chirruping birds. The floor of the room was covered with a fine layer of bird seed, so that you walked your feet scrunched pleasantly as though you were on a shingle beach. Fascinated by this mass of birds, I edged slowly round the room, pausing to gaze into each cage, while Kralevsky, who appeared to have forgotten my existence, seized a large watering can from the table and danced nimbly from cage to cage, filling the water pots. My first impression that the birds were all canaries were quite wrong. To my delight, I found there were goldfinches painted like clowns in vivid scarlet, yellow, and black, green finches as green and yellow as lemon leaves in midsummer, linnets in their neat chocolate and white tweed suiting, bullfinches with bulging rose pink breasts, and a host of other birds. In one corner of the room, I found small French windows that led me out onto a balcony. At each end, a large aviary had been built, and in one lived a cock blackbird, black and velvety, with flaunting banana yellow beak, while in the other aviary opposite was a thrush-like bird, which was clad in the most gorgeous blue feathering, a celestial combination of shades from navy to opal. Rock thrush, announced Kralevsky, poking his head round the door suddenly and pointing at his beautiful bird. I had it sent over as a nestling last year from Albania, you know. Unfortunately, I have not as yet been able to obtain a lady for him. All right, so we'll stop here for now. And I just want to ask children who are here, the students who are here, whether they have seen any videos by David Attenborough, the naturalist who also makes a lot of movies. There is this particular movie called The Living Planet, or it's a series of videos actually. And in that, there is one which is particularly on birds. So if you haven't seen it, please do see it. And you will see a representation of these fantastic birds, which Gerald here has so beautifully described. So I would urge you all to actually spend some time trying to see these very, very informative and extremely interesting videos on natural history, which are on birds and, of course, animals and many other different phenomena in nature, right? So thank you, Jugjeev sir, for allowing me to continue to read for a little extra time. And if there are any questions, that any one of you would want to ask or share, please do that. And then Jugjeev sir can carry on with his session of reading.
I'm just going to very quickly share. We talked of, the conference you've come back
Yes,
from.
yes, yes. Oh, yes, the Sheetal Devi. She has
Yes,
created ripples.
yes,
She's such a motivation, inspiration.
right.
Wow.
She's participating in the para, this is a
Yes,
para world para
archery.
championship. Yeah.
Yes,
And this is September 25.
that's right. But even in the Commonwealth Games, sir, we had a whole lot of para athletes, and they did us so proud. They did
Yeah,
India so proud. I saw this shot put, athletes. Two
yeah,
of them who won the gold and the silver for
yeah,
India.
yeah.
It is amazing how with one arm they've been able to achieve what they did. So
Yeah. So no,
yeah,
it's
look at
absolutely
her.
amazing. So here she's winning the
Yeah,
world championship.
absolutely. It really
And
leaves you with a lot of thinking to do.
yeah, and the fascinating thing in her case is that subsequently she participated in an able-bodied competition to
Yes,
represent India, and she qualified.
absolutely.
But unfortunately, that event got cancelled. But
Ah,
she's looking to participate on what we call the able-bodied side as well, and she's doing well. So that just
imagine.
tells you the point
Yeah,
that you made, that they're not less in any way.
not at all. In fact, I would say that a lot of us, so-called normal, very, physically fine people, we are the ones who are underachievers because we don't really stretch out and we don't really know what our true abilities are. So it's a freak accident. So there was this who was comparing the conference programs. She was on a wheelchair and she compared from morning till afternoon so cheerfully, and she was telling us her own story where she met with an accident. She was born absolutely normal and intellectually very sharp, but she met with an accident where she had multiple failings of organs, and then she went through a series of surgeries and treatment, and today she's able to sit on a wheelchair, but her legs, everything below her hips are absolutely insensitive. She has no feeling whatsoever. But the confidence and the cheerfulness with which she presented herself was something that made our hands stand on end. So I went after, at the end of the day, I went and struck a conversation with her, and I came to know that she works for the UN, and with her condition, the kind of contributions she's doing. And then we had this Jija Ghosh, who's a cerebral palsy victim, and she's confined to a wheelchair, but she had the gumption to stand up against the Indian aviation industry, for her rights, and she made it now disabled friendly for a whole lot of people like her. So there were so many stories like this, Jugjeev sir, and I think the weekly, of course, is a small representation of what happened over there, but there would be many stories on LinkedIn and other platforms, which I'm sure all of the participants here today can access. And when you do see people with these kind of special abilities, do spare a moment to think about them and their lives and see what we can do to make this world a better place for them. Thank you, everybody, and have a good reading session, sir, and Manisha ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming.
Very powerful words Brinda Ma'am just said about how Many of us are underachievers in spite of having all our faculties as they're meant to operate. So something to think about. So I am reading this book called "What You Are Looking For Is in the Library." It is by Michiko Aoyama, and just go to the picture, ma'am. Uh, and
So, which picture?
yeah, there should be a picture. There's no picture. Yeah, there's a picture there, right? We can just make it a little bigger. So you know, this is the book that I'm reading for you, and we finished four chapters, and each chapter is a separate story of people on different situations in life and how they dealt with it. What's common is that they all are living around this community center which has this library. That's what's common. Okay, so let me ask you, what do you see in this picture? What do you see? What do you all see? Raise your hand, ma'am will unmute you and you can talk, or you can put it in the chat. What are you all seeing in this picture? What do you see? What is this person doing? What else is there?
Yes, Hirat, you want to say something? You're unmuted.
What do you all see? Extreme right hand corner bottom is a box of honey dome cookies, which we've been reading about, right? Which is there on, which is what Miss Kamachi uses to put all her felting stuff in. What else do you all of you see? What do you see?
Is that caliber?
Say that again.
Is that caliber?
I don't know what it is, but there's clearly somebody is looking at something which is and trying to operate in a kitchen, it seems to me, so which is quite a common sight these days, right? People looking at a YouTube video or looking at something on the internet and trying to cook something, right? Anybody see anything else? Surely you all are seeing something. What are you all seeing? Hitarth Sharma, tell us. Can't hear you. Hand is raised and unmuted, but can't. I can't hear. Anybody else? What do you see? Okay, ma'am. Let's go on.
Okay, as you were saying, what we can see, I can see that the person is very much passionate about it, is trying to multitask, and the clothes are also hanging behind. So it seems all of it, or maybe most of it, he has done it. And the best part is passionate. He's actually passionate and he's loving his work because he's trying to see something and do. So his senses are all occupied. That's what I can
Certainly
understand.
very involved. Certainly very involved in his work,
Yes.
as you observe. Yes, and there's laundry at the back. Okay, so this is Masao, 65, retired. The last day of September, when I turned 65, was also my last day working for the company. I did not have any outstanding achievements to show for my 42 years there, but nor was my record blemished or spoiled in any way. I had risen to the position of manager, and my diligence is an earnest or a sincere approach to work, was duly recognized. On the day I left, I was presented with a bouquet of flowers and departed to applause and a chorus of good wishes. Thank you for your hard work. Thanks for everything. Take care. I felt relief mingled with wistfulness. Wistfulness is a little a sad feeling when you're remembering something, and a sense of accomplishment. right? Achievement. Every day for 42 years, I had boarded a train at a set time, traveling to the same office to sit in my designated seat and do the work I was given. In the course of my career, I came across many challenges that I dealt with the best I could. The day the curtain came down on that life, which means it finished, I took one last good look at the office building, bowed deeply, and turned my back on it. And then, well, what am I going to do now? So, if you think of one day you'll go ahead and finish school, right? How would you feel on the day you finish school? How do you think you'll feel? How do you think you'll feel the day you finish school? Anybody? How do you think you'll feel? You can put it in chat, or Manisha can unmute you and you can tell us. Nabia, Myra, how would you feel? Metli, how would you feel? Reflective, Arfa says. Okay. What else? Anybody else? You'll have a different bunch of feelings, right? Won't be only one, right? Reflective would be one. Would you be happy? Would you be sad? Would you be a bit of both? How would you feel? Both, Arfa says. Yeah, I think so. You're happy that you're moving on to the next stage, but sad because you'll obviously miss some of your friends that won't be with you. Yeah. So, one very powerful exercise that you could do for yourself is write down a speech you will give on the last day of your school. Just assume it's like you've been asked to do a speech on your last day of school, and if you write down that speech today, it'll be a very powerful exercise you can do for yourself. And when you do it, then you'll realize why I'm saying that. So if you would like to and have the time, please do that. And we'd love to have that as a reflection from you as well. The speech that you will give on your last day at school. Okay. The cherry blossom season is nearly over. Perhaps I should go and see the blossoms again tomorrow. On second thoughts, perhaps not. I've already seen plenty. Usually, I would rush out at the weekend in early April to catch the blossoms before they fell. But this year was different. I've had the leisure to follow their progress from bud through to full bloom. I was able to go and view them whenever the fancy took me, at any time of day or night. So, the first time that I went to Tokyo happened to be in early April, and I was just walking to the office and I saw those really pretty flowers. And later I realized that they were cherry blossom. So cherry blossoms are there only for a few weeks in the year, and there's a lot of meaning attached, different types of meanings attached to them. But two of them I can talk to you about. One is that uh, they're supposed to symbolize that life is short, right? And so stay in the present and make the best of it, because cherry blossom is there only for a really short while, right? And April to March is the fiscal year that Japan works on, and so it also suggesting new beginnings in the beginning of April. Okay, so and there's some other connotations as well for cherry blossom. Chie was young. I was always busy to take weekends. When my daughter Chie was young, I was always too busy to take weekends off. And often we didn't get to see the blossoms together. Now that I finally have the time, however, Chie is not at home anymore. She lives on her own nowadays, but even if she were still at home, I doubt if she would accompany her father to view the blossoms. So this is a thing, in the Western world, especially in the US, is fairly common, right? Uh, children, you know, children are old, but they may be working, but they're not married, but they go out and live on their own. In Japan, apparently, it's still not that common, but Chia is doing this. In India, of course, it's not also not so common. But as you know, in the US, it's fairly common that children move out pretty early in life. So, do you see any positives and minuses of this? What do you think could be a positive of if you do this? Somebody did this, what would be a positive? Right? Leave home at 18, 19, 20, and live by yourself in the same city as your parents. Do you see any positive to that? Would any of you like to do that? What do you all think? What do you all think? Myra, you want to tell us? Arfad, you want to tell us? Nabia, what do you think? Nikla, what do you think? Pluses, minuses, what do you all think? Life skills, yes. You will learn. I mean, you have to be on your own, so yeah. You'll certainly learn life skills. You learn how to cook for sure, right? Like we saw in the picture, this person is fairly old, and obviously, because we know whom we're reading about is Masao at 65, and he's trying to figure out how to cook. So yeah, that's what happened when I look at cousins and their children who live in the U.S. and had to go out early in life. They learned how to cook for sure. That's one key life skill that you learn, and obviously, uh, you independence have its own. Yes, our first is independence. Yeah, so that's you have a lot of freedom, right? Uh, Doing what you want when you want. You don't have to ask anybody, uh, right? But then also you don't have a immediate support for something, right? So that's the flip side, and you get a lot of emotional support from your parents. Work gets shared, stuff happens in the house. You may not have to contribute to it. So there's a lot of there are pluses and minuses, like with everything in life, right? But okay, let's go on. In the 6 months since my retirement, I have learned three things. One is that 65 is not as old as I thought. This came as a surprise. I'm not all like the old man, at all like the old man I used to imagine that I would become. Of course, I haven't been young for quite some time now, but I certainly don't feel yet more like middle aged. So recently, I came across an article in the Guardian which says that today, middle age begins at 80. It's just the lifespans have gone longer, and you know, people are just more conscious, I suspect, of exercise and what they eat and stuff like that. So, and medicine, of course. So I think. People are living longer and staying healthier for longer, and that's basically the goal most people have, right? Staying healthier for longer. uh, so can you all think of any consequence of you know longer lifespan? What does it mean? What does it mean, longer lifespan? What does it mean? For the person, for the family, for the country, for the community, what does it mean? Longer lifespans. More body pain. So Arfa, the point, the goal here is to have a healthier, longer life. Yeah. So hopefully not necessarily more body pain. Hopefully, people are staying fit much longer. There's a gentleman in my building who is in the early 80s. He used to be a brigadier in the army, and if you see him walk, you will not believe that he's early 80s. So people are getting old today, but they're also staying really fit, right? There was this gentleman in Canada who was running marathons at 90 plus or early hundreds, right? So not necessarily more body pain, but it has implication for society, right? It has implication for countries. Government's pension bills go up, right? But it also, also means that the retirement that your retirement time is much longer. So for I know Chetna ma'am, I see you are there, and Rita ma'am, I think you're there. I hope you all are doing something about the financial literacy session that we had, because retirement is going to be much longer for most people, and that's a serious implication, a good implication, I would say, as long as we've planned for it. So. Uh, the in any country, the percentage of people who are dependent on the people who are working goes up. So that has implications, for the economics and the economy of a country. Okay. The second thing is that I have a worrying lack of hobbies. What is a hobby? Can anybody tell me what is a hobby? Do any of you have a hobby? If you have a hobby, please put it in chat or raise your hand and tell us. If you have a hobby, what is a hobby? Okay. So I will say to you that if your uh, yes, that's the point I wanted to make, Myra. That hobby is something we do, and Satvik is saying the same thing, that we do in our free time. So it's out of choice that you're doing something. That's a hobby. Not if in school or at home you're going to a class. That was not necessarily a hobby. It is something that you choose to do in your own free time, and it has a lot of advantages. Right? You have many different types of hobbies, and this is a good time when you're in school, to try different things and see what you like and create some hobbies. Otherwise you'll end up in the situation that Masao is in. He's 65, he doesn't have any hobbies, he doesn't know what to do with his time. I do have a number of small pleasures, things I look forward to, such as my evening beer or watching the latest epic historical drama on Sunday evening. But these are part of my everyday life and not the same thing as a hobby. I don't make anything, and I don't have any kind of all absorbing interest that I can talk about with passion. The third thing I have learned, Sai, the third thing is that now I no longer work for a company. I am no longer acknowledged by society at large. Okay, so it's a big thing, and when people retire, it hits them. Especially, I've noticed it uh, in friends of mine who were in college, and they went and worked in the government. In the government, you get used to a lot of power, and suddenly you're retired, and you know all those trappings of power are suddenly gone. And you had lots to do, you had many connects, you had a big circle whom you talk to on a daily basis. Suddenly it's all gone. So a lot of your connections and your your life revolves around work-related things, right? And what do you think about the concept that you know that we should worry about what society thinks of you? What do you think about it? Okay, just think about this. Let me just read a little bit more, and I'll come back to this because I'm going to just amplify this. Talking to people had been a part of my job as I was in the sales department for many years, which is why I may have been under the mistaken impression that I had a wide personal network. It was a shock when New Year came after I retired and I received none of the usual cards or end of year gifts. I was shaken to realize that all my relationships had been business ones and that I had no real friends after all, not even somebody to drink tea with. Over the last 6 months, all trace of my existence at the company has faded away, despite my 42 years there. Right, so he thought he had a social standing. It was, he was an important person in society, right? And suddenly this he retires and all goes away, right? So, do anybody have any comment on it? Okay, so this is, as I said earlier, it's quite common, and the typically the trap we fall into is doing things for society. Who should you be doing things for? Who should you be doing things for? Who
For
should be doing things
ourselves.
for? Yep, yep. Everyone, yeah, broadly speaking, but firstly, for yourself, what you think is right, and you have to judge for yourselves. You shouldn't be looking for other people to, to get recognition from. If I think I've done a good job, that's good enough, right? If I think that I can, I'm skilled at these things and I can show that it's actually true, that's fine. I'm sitting idly in front of the television when Yuriko arrives home from work. Yuriko is his wife. She looks around the room, makes a clucking sound, then stalks over to the balcony entrance. Really, Masao, didn't I ask you to bring the laundry in? Damn, I forgot the laundry. But Yuriko isn't really angry, I can tell. Dopey head, she said, as if scolding a child. She opens the sliding glass door to the balcony and puts on outdoor slippers to go and bring in the washing. Sorry, I say, as she hands me the laundry through the door and I carry it inside. The dry clothes smell of sunshine. The sunshine smell, right? The sunshine smell. Does anybody smell sunshine?
It is about the feeling which the sunshine gives us. So it's not written directly.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think sunshine as a means of taking moisture out of clothes, right? And yeah, as Vandana says, the smell of freshness. So that's what it ends up doing, the air and the sun. So that gives it freshness. So that's the smell that's being alluded to, I guess. I've never done housework and still find it hard to get used to. If Yuriko asks me to do something for her, it just seems to slip my mind. But if I keep on loafing about at home like this, both my body and brain will run to seed and I will end up a senile old man. Run to seed is, faculties going away, things you're not being able to do things that you were able to do earlier, right? And Senile old man is a similar thing based on the brain, where the brain's capabilities start to go down, which happens in routine in old age. Now might be the only time Yuriko laughs at my forgetfulness. She is very forgiving, but that might only be a sign she thinks that anger is futile, futile meaning useless, because she has already given up on me. Now you see, he's just thinking of all these things in his mind, right? And that's what happens when you have a lot of time to yourself and you're not doing something productively. That's what happens. You end up thinking, and many times it could end up being something which is not necessarily correct. With grim determination, I proceed to take the laundry off the pegs. But then I'm not sure how to fold the socks and underwear. So I pick out the towels and hoodies. Oh, Masao, by the way, Yuriko says, I brought you this. She hands me a flyer from her bag. The heading in large letters at the top reads Go Class. So Go is a game, right? Invented in China, maybe I think 2.5, 3,000 years ago. And it is amongst the oldest board games there is, right? Anybody wishes in an old board game invented in India? Old board game invented in India? Anybody? Right? World champion of that is an Indian. Yes, chess currently world champion is an Indian, and the next championship is coming up shortly. And unfortunately, Gukesh is not in good form right now. It seems. Yeah, so chess was invented in India, but later than Go. Okay, so Go is a different game, but I mean, a little bit I read about it seems very interesting. Uh, and unlike chess, you start with a blank board and then you fill it up, right? Remember, I told you about Mr. Yakita, one of my students. He started teaching a Go class at the community house in April, and I thought you might be interested. Mr. Yakita, the old man who was making a web page about wildflowers? Yes, that's the one. His Go class fee is monthly, but since April is half over, he offered to let you pay only half. Yuriko used to be a systems engineer at an IT company. This is his wife until she was 40. She works freelance now and is registered with an association through which she receives requests to teach computer classes and courses. So, does everybody understand freelance? What is the concept of freelance? You all understand? Yes, Vandana, Shatranj. Yes, Magnus Carlsen is one of the supposedly, or maybe undoubtedly one of the greatest players going right now. But yeah, so freelance. Does everybody understand the concept of freelance? Right. So that's when you are not working permanently, in a particular job, and you have this option of working part time doing projects, right? So that type of work is now far more common than it used to be, and that's always an option. You have a particular skill, and you help different people based on a mutually convenient time, effort, all that stuff. Right? Where you have more flexibility over your own time. That's how she came to be at this place where she's teaching now, the community house. She goes there every Wednesday. I don't know much about computers myself, but I do know that having IT skills is important these days. And in Yuriko's field of work, there is also no retirement age. Right? That's a good concept, right? You work until you feel like working, right? Because you're a freelancer, and as long as you're bringing something to the table and somebody is there who wants your services, you're in business. The community house is only a 10-minute walk. You know the place, next to Hattori Elementary. They're joined together. Go, you say. I've never tried it. All the better. Learning from scratch will be an interesting exercise for you, she replies from the kitchen, where she is now tying an apron around her waist. At 56, Yuriko is 9 years younger than I am. My young bride, people used to call her when we got married. Although nobody calls her that anymore, she still seems to think of herself as a young wife. And she is, in fact, youthful and active. She also still works. Women in their 50s nowadays seem to shine at their work with a confidence that is quite dazzling. So Yuriko thinks I should play Go. I examine the flyer and picture how that might seem. Yes, my hobby is Go. It's nothing out of the ordinary, but it might not be a bad thing to try out. At the very least, it will give my brain some exercise. The class is on Monday mornings at 11. I consult our joint calendar, and of course, there is nothing written down for me at this time. All entries on it are Eureka's. When Monday morning comes, I set out for the community house. I know where Hattori Elementary School is and find it easily, but the front gate is firmly locked. I press the intercom button at the gate and a woman answers. Hello, I'm here for the Go class, I tell her. Excuse me? The Go class at the community house. Aha, I see. The woman proceeds to tell me that there is a separate entrance for community house, and I should follow the fence around to the signboard that will indicate the way. Slightly disgruntled that the community house is not in fact joined to the school, as I had been led to believe, I follow the fence as instructed as far as a signboard that informs me. Community house listed. Eventually, I reach a white building at the end of a narrow street, which is separated from the schoolyard by a fence. Inside the front entrance, there is a reception desk immediately to the right. In an office area behind this desk, a young man in a green shirt with a thick mop of hair is working at a computer. He comes out when he notices me. So, the interesting thing in this story is that some of the characters that we've come across earlier are there in this story. So, any guesses? Who is this man in the green shirt? Young man in the green shirt? Who could it be? Who do you think this man in the green shirt could be? Okay, he's Hiroya, right? Who the last chapter was about. Fill in this form, please, he says, pointing to a list on the counter with spaces to fill in for name, purpose of visit, and time of arrival and departure. I had trouble finding this place, I tell him. My wife said it was joined to the elementary school, so I assumed they were in the same grounds. The man laughs. This place used to be connected to the elementary school, but access is blocked now for security reasons. You don't say. Yes, it's a real shame because the original purpose of the community house was to promote interaction between the children and local residents. But there have been too many nasty incidents, I suppose. The children's safety and security come first, and now even the school front gate is kept locked. Many students have Many students leave Hattori Elementary without ever once coming in here. I make the appropriate noises as he speaks while I fill in my name and other details. Masao Gono. Nobody says my name aloud much these days. The last time was at a dentist a month ago. I find the Go class in the Japanese style room. What is the Japanese style room? Do anybody know what is the Japanese style room? Right, Japanese basically, believe in what is called minimalist as a concept, right? And the Japanese style room is a room with obviously with wooden flooring for sure, but also everything very low seating and minimal seating, right? And you have to remove your shoes. You don't get to take your shoes inside. So removing my shoes, I step up onto the tatami mat. Okay. Although there are people engaged in playing each other over the go board, an old man with a square jaw sitting alone at the back of the room calls out to me, Mr. Gono, welcome to the class. Your wife has told me about you. Thank you for allowing me to participate. Not at all, you're welcome. It feels strange to exchange such banal social pleasantries again. Banal is trite much, which is overused. Right? I haven't done this in quite a while. Yuriko had told me that Mr. Yukita is 75, but he looks hale and hearty. Hale and hearty, energetic, healthy, and his skin glows. Right? So, what type of person's skin will glow? What do you think? What type of person's skin will glow? What does it suggest? If your skin is glowing, what does it suggest? A glowing skin. Eats healthy, youth, well, eats healthy and is healthy. Okay. Yes, youth because you're naturally like that when you're younger. So if somebody's 75 and the skin glows, that's really good, right? That's what you're aiming. I mean, uh, these days people use so many cosmetics to achieve the same result, but fundamentally it suggests healthy and happy. Yes, happy is also important. Absolutely, absolutely, Jet. I'm absolutely happy. He indicates for me to sit and puts a go board between us. Then he commences to explain the rules starting from the very beginning. He tells me how to place the stones, where to place them, the order in which to place them, and how to decide who makes the first move. In Go, black makes the first move, unlike chess where white starts. I listen attentively, my eyes fastened on the board and nod at everything. Then, quite abruptly, he says, your wife is wonderful. Startled, I look up to see him stroking his chin thoughtfully. I envy you. Mrs. Gono is very intelligent and quick witted and also good at her work. I'm done with marriage myself. From this, I gather he is divorced and single. Nonplussed, I make an ambiguous reply. Nonplussed is you staying calm and not getting phased, and ambiguous has double meaning. Nonplussed, I make an ambiguous reply and try to focus on the go stones again. This, however, has the effect of prompting Mr. Yukita to launch into a monologue. Right? So it seems that Masao is a little surprised by this conversation, right? Why do you think he's surprised by this conversation Mr. Yukita has started? Why do you think he's surprised? Right? So this is the first time he's meeting him, right? So you don't expect people to start talking about such personal things first time around, right? So I think that's why he's a little, surprised and he's not trying to be too involved. Jealous? I don't know. I don't. I don't know. You see a lot of late life divorce these days. Arguments between husband and wife can be all right if one goes out to work every day. You might have a spat in the morning, but by the time you get home at night, things are more or less blown over. But if you're at home all the time and in each other's pockets all day, well, there's no opportunity to step back and let things reset. We've been together so many years. I don't think much about it. Every Jack has his Jill. You know how it is. I beg your pardon. What you have to understand about women is that they can reach a certain point when all of a sudden every little thing that's ever irritated them becomes too much to bear anymore. Just like that. Towards the end, even my taste in socks was too much for her. What on earth are you wearing today? She'd say. Right? So, Rika's analysis may not be correct, but this is what happens, right? When you small things keep building up, and they form the background when you look at somebody the next time, and you could end up being irritated or angry, and somebody can do something small, but you could still be irritated or angry, even though that particular thing may not be that big, because you've been you've been sort of noticing all those things and piling those things in your own mind. So that's clearly this seems to be the situation here, and there's no communication happening, right? And this happens between friends, between people in the same family, between acquaintances. It happens all the time in office. It happens all the time, right? So it's always better to you know deal with each small thing by itself and not let it pile up. This teacher obviously likes to talk, just like me, I guess. Maybe hearing about his private life is an initiation ceremony for joining this class. I can't help stealing a look at his socks and observing that they have a fish scale like pattern. But if that's the reason his wife left, then I feel sorry for him. I smile slightly as Mr. Yakita continues his story. It was a bolt from the blue when she presented me with the divorce papers, I can tell you. But I have no shortage of things to keep me busy. I've been playing Go since I was a teenager, and I garden and I look for wildflowers. So I thought, well, why not? Maybe we can both go back to being single again and enjoy life on our own. If anything, it was all for the best, I think. Is this the secret then? If you throw yourself into doing the things you like, it's possible to live a happy, healthy life as he does, even if one is getting old, retired, divorced, and living alone. Mr. Yukita also has status as a Go teacher, and bound there is bound to be some Go associations he belongs to, not to mention all the contacts from his interest in plants. That website he learned to make in Yuriko's class must attract people. My wife started changing her attitude towards me about 6 months after I retired, he says, lowering his voice as if to emphasize that this is more important than the rules of Go. Time for you to be on your guard. Start paying attention. Go turns out to be a little more difficult than I thought. I was not allowed to take notes while listening to Mr. Yukita's verbal instructions, and nothing seemed to stick in my head. At the end of the lesson, I was ready to throw in the towel, but having paid for 2 lessons in advance, I don't want to waste my money by not coming again. While putting on my shoes to leave, the same young man in the green shirt from reception walks past me and disappears through a door at the end of the corridor with a sign above that says library. I hadn't realized that this place has a library. Perhaps it has books on Go. I follow in the young man's tracks and enter through the same doorway to investigate. The library is a cozy place with tightly packed shelves lining the walls. The young man is chatting with a girl in navy blue apron. but otherwise there is nobody else in here. I start to wander around searching for go books when the girl in the apron walks by holding several books in her arms. The name tag on her chest reads Nozomi Morinaga. Excuse me, could you tell me where I can find books about Go, please? Nozomi Morinaga bestows on me a smile as radiant as a sun, which is a very bright smile. Right? Over there, she says, pointing with one hand to a shelf on the opposite side of the room. Please follow me. The shelf labeled entertainment has many books about Go and shogi, far more than I expected. We have a large selection, Nozomi says, as a gaze travels over the shelf. But choosing can be difficult because in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. She seems to be a sensitive woman, sensitive young woman, attuned to the feelings of library patrons. I imagine she would be a dependable member of staff. I'd never played Go myself, but I'm sure the librarian could help with selecting some suitable text for you. She's over there. I did not think the situation warranted using a librarian for advice, but if Nozomi thought it was a good idea, then I was willing to try. Okay, Manisha ma'am, we'll stop here. It's almost 12. Okay, anybody, any thoughts, any comments? Okay, then we'll get to the Hindi book. Hitarth has his hand up. Hitarth, anything you want to say? कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं? आप अनम्यूट तो हैं पर आवाज नहीं आ रही आपकी. Okay, Manisha, carry on.
Whose hand is up?
Hitarth.
Sir, his hand is up since I don't know when.
Okay.
I'll lower it down. It must be paining now. I've lowered his hand.
Saying thinking of retirement now. That shows that you're too busy. You think grass is greener on the other side, right? But it never is.
Hitarth here. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Now we'll be reading a Hindi book. Just give me 1 minute, I'll share. My screen is already shared. Okay. तो पिछली बार हम कहानी पढ़ रहे थे. कौन सी कहानी पढ़ रहे थे, किसी को याद है? Anyone?
रिफ्लेक्शन नहीं पढ़ी. रिफ्लेक्शन में काफी उस पर चर्चा है बाघ की कहानी के बारे में.
मैं रिफ्लेक्शन ही दिखा देती हूँ अभी इन लोग को.
नहीं आप पढ़ लीजिए. मैं तो ऐसे ही कह रहा था. समय कम है, आप पढ़ लीजिए.
तो हम कौवे की कहानी पढ़ रहे थे और कौवा किस तरीके से मिसचिफ करता है और किस तरीके से आपको फूड साइकिल, यहाँ पे एक बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग मोड पे कहानी आ गई थी जहाँ पे फूड चेन के बारे में बात हो रही थी कि कैसे छोटे एनिमल्स को बड़े एनिमल्स खाते हैं एंड साइमल्टेनियसली वेजिटेरियंस क्या खाते हैं, किस तरीके से खाते हैं. तो ये फूड चेन की भी यहाँ पे थोड़ी सी कहानी आ गई थी और एंजॉय तो हम कर ही रहे थे इस कहानी को. करते 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 कहानी थोड़ी बड़ी हो गई. जनरली हम स्टोरीज को उसी दिन खत्म कर देते हैं, बट इस बार थोड़ी बड़ी होने के कारण हम फिर से इसको स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं. तो मैं कहानी को आगे बढ़ाना चाहूंगी और देखेंगे कि इस फूड चेन में क्या होता है, किस तरीके से नेवला चूहे को खाने दे चाहता है या दूसरे जो इंसान है वो नेवले को मार के आगे बढ़ते हैं. आगे चल के ये कहानी हमें बताएगी. अंडे को ले जाने की जद्दोजहद में पूरी तरह से लीन चूहे ने नेवले के आने की आवाज नहीं सुनी। जब ये दो बड़े और फरों वाले आगंतुक अचानक एक पत्थर के नीचे से उछले तो चूहे डर के मारे चिल्लाए। उन्होंने अंडे को वहीं छोड़ दिया और अपनी जान बचाने के लिए भाग गए। नेवले ने अंडे को तोड़कर उसे अपने पेट के हवाले करने में जरा भी समय नहीं गंवाया, लेकिन जिस तरह कुछ मिनट पहले चूहे ने उनके आने पर ध्यान नहीं दिया था, उसी तरह अब उन्होंने गांव में के लड़कों को नहीं देखा जिसके हाथों में एक छोटी सी चमकीली कुल्हाड़ी और एक जालीदार बैग था। वह लड़का रेंगता हुआ आ रहा। रामू भी अंडों की तलाश कर रहा था और जब उसने नेवलों को एक अंडा उड़ाते देखा तो वह देखने के लिए खड़ा रहा। उसकी आंखें घोंसले की तलाश में घूम रही थी। वह उम्मीद कर रहा था कि नेवले उसे घोंसले तक ले जाएंगे, लेकिन जब वे अपना भोजन समाप्त कर चुके और झाड़ियों में उतर गए तो रामू को खुद तलाश करने लगे। वह घोंसला खोजने में असफल रहा और आगे जंगल में चला गया। चूहे को फिर उम्मीद बंधी ही थी कि मुर्गी लौट आई और वो मायूस हो गया। तो अब अंडों के पीछे देखिए कितने लोग पड़े हुए थे। एनिमल्स भी थे, इंसान भी थे, और वो चाह रहे थे कि किस तरीके से वो अंडे को अपने पास लेकर के आए और किस तरीके से अंडे से अपना पेट को भर सके। रामू अब महुआ के पेड़ के पास गया। महुआ के फूल को जानवर भी खा सकते हैं और आदमी भी। भालू विशेष रूप में उन्हें पसंद करते हैं और इन फूलों को कपाकप खाते। वे फूल धीरे धीरे उनके पेट में खमीर उठाने लगते हैं, जिससे जानवरों को काफी नशा हो जाता है। पहले जमानों में जब हार्ड ड्रिंक्स नहीं थी तो लोग महुआ के फूल खा के ही नशा करते थे, एंड वो काफी ज्यादा प्रचलन में भी था। रामू ने कई बार भालुओं के एक जोड़े को अपने गुफा में लौटते समय एक दूसरे से या पेड़ों के तनों से टकराते हुए देखा था। उन्हें वैसे भी दूर का नहीं दिखता और जब वे नशे में होते तो शायद ही देख पाते थे, लेकिन उनकी सूंघने और सुनने की क्षमता इतनी अच्छी होती है कि आखिरकार वे अपने घर का रास्ता ढूंढ ही लेते हैं। रामू ने फैसला किया कि वो महुआ के कुछ फूल इकट्ठा करेगा। उस पर वह उस पेड़ पर चढ़ गया जो फूलने पर बिना पत्ते का होता है। वह सफेद फूलों को तोड़कर जमीन पर फेंकने लगा। उसे पेड़ पर लगभग 5 मिनट हुए थे कि उसने एक भालू की घरघराहट सुनी। वह एक जवान और सुस्त भालू था। वह पेड़ के नीचे की खाली जगह में चला गया। वह एक छोटा भालू था, एक शावक से थोड़ा बड़ा। रामू डरा नहीं था, लेकिन उसने सोचा कि इस भालू की मां आसपास ही हो सकती है, इसलिए उसने अपनी जगह से न हिलने का फैसला किया और बहुत शांत होकर बैठा रहा। वह दरअसल ये देखने के लिए इंतजार कर रहा था कि भालू क्या करेगा। वह मना रहा था कि भालू भोजन के लिए महुआ के पेड़ को न चुने। युवा भालू ने सबसे पहले अपनी नाक को जमीन पर रखा और तब तक सूंघता रहा जब तक कि वो चींटियों के बड़े पहाड़ तक नहीं पहुंच गया। तब उसने अपने नथनों से तेजी से फड़काना और फुफकारना शुरू कर दिया। उसने चींटियों की धूल सभी दिशाओं में उड़ने लगी, लेकिन वह एक निराश भालू था क्योंकि चींटियों का टीला बहुत पहले सुनसान हो चुका था और इसलिए कुड़कुड़ाते हुए वह जंगली बेर के एक ऊंचे पेड़ के पार चला गया और उसने चिपने तने पर तेजी से चढ़ते हुए जल्द ही उसकी ऊपरी शाखा पर जा बैठा। तभी उसकी नजर रामू पर पड़ी। भालू फौरन पेड़ पर कई फुट ऊपर चढ़ गया और एक शाखा पर लेट गया। यह काफी मोटी शाखा नहीं थी और भालू का शरीर इसके दोनों ओर पसरा हुआ दिखाई दे रहा था। भालू ने अपना सिर दूसरी शाखा के पीछे छिपा लिया और जब तक रामू को नहीं देख पाया काफी संतुष्ट लग रहा था कि वह अच्छी तरह से छिपा हुआ था। हालांकि वह चिंता से बड़बड़ाए बिना नहीं रह सकता था, क्योंकि अधिकांश जानवरों की तरह भालू भी इंसान से डरता है। हालांकि भालू बहुत जिज्ञासु होते हैं और यही जिज्ञासा उन्हें अक्सर परेशानी में डाल देती है। धीरे धीरे इंच दर इंच शाखा के किनारे पर युवा भालू का काला थूथन दिखाई दिया। उसकी नजरें रामू की नजरों से जा मिली। वह एक झटके से पीछे हटा और उसका सिर एक बार फिर छिप गया। भालू ने ऐसा 2 या 3 बार किया और रामू ने बहुत खुश होकर कुछ देर उसका सिर छिपे रहने का इंतजार किया। फिर वह पेड़ पर कुछ नीचे आ गया। अब भालू ने फिर से ऊपर देखा और पाया कि लड़का गायब है। तब वह अपने आप में इतना खुश हुआ कि वह एक बेर खाने के लिए ठीक अगली शाखा की ओर बढ़ा। रामू ने उसी पल जोर से ठहाका लगाया। भौचक्का भालू पेड़ से लुढ़का और शाखाओं में से होकर लगभग 15 फीट नीचे गिरा। वह सूखे पत्तों के ढेर में धड़ाम से जा गिरा था। फिर लगभग एक ही समय में कई चीजें हुई। माँ भालू वहां आ गई। राम को पेड़ पर देखकर वह जोर से गुर्राते हुए अपनी पिछली टांगों पर खड़ी हो गई। अब चौंकने की बारी रामू की थी। हिंसक माँ भालू से ज्यादा खतरनाक कम ही जानवर होती है और लड़का जानता था कि उसके नगदार पंखों का एक वार उसकी खोपड़ी को खोल सकता है। लेकिन इससे पहले कि भालू पेड़ के पास पहुंचती, एक जबरदस्त गर्जना हुई और बूढ़ा बाघ उस जगह आ पहुंचा। वह दूर झाड़ियों में सोया हुआ था। उसे भारी भोजन के बाद अच्छी नींद पसंद थी और यहाँ हुए शोर ने उसे जगा दिया था। वह बुरे मूड में था और उसने जोर से ए ऊ करने में उसकी नाराजगी को बिल्कुल स्पष्ट कर दिया। भालू मुड़ी और वहां से भाग गई। बच्चा भालू दर्द से चिल्लाने लगा। बाघ तब पेड़ के नीचे ठीक नीचे पहुंचा। पेड़ पर कांपते हुए लड़के को देख के वह फिर से दहाड़ा। रामू पेड़ से गिरते गिरते बचा। नमस्ते चाचा, वह घबराहट में फीकी मुस्कान के अपने दांत दिखाते हुए हकलाया। शायद बाघ के लिए ये कुछ ज्यादा ही था। धीमी गुर्राहट के साथ उसने महुआ के पेड़ की ओर पीठ कर ली और जंगल में चला गया। उसकी पूंछ नफरत से फड़क रही थी। क्या कभी आप लोग के साथ ऐसा हुआ है कि आपने जो सोचा कि सिचुएशन ऐसे आप कवर करेंगे और बिल्कुल ही उसके उल्टा हुआ हो आपके साथ? आप सिचुएशन को किसी एक सिचुएशन को हैंडल करना चाहते होंगे पॉजिटिव वे में और वो बिल्कुल उसके ऑपोजिट नेगेटिव हो गई हो, या कुछ सिचुएशन ऐसी होती है कि आपको लगता है कि नेगेटिव हो सकती है बट उसका आउटकम पॉजिटिव हो। कभी हुआ है ऑपोजिट सिचुएशंस आपके साथ? एक्चुअल सिचुएशन बाद में टर्न होकर के कुछ दूसरे ही तरीके से घूम गई हो। किसी किसी दिन स्कूल में ऐसा कुछ हुआ होगा, या घर पे हुआ होगा, या नेबरहुड में देखा या सुना आपने, या आपने खुद इसको एक्सपीरियंस किया है? यस मैम। तो आप बताना चाहेंगे क्या हुआ था? कौन बताना चाहेगा? आफिया बताना चाहेंगे कुछ जो आपके हिसाब से सिचुएशन का आउटकम कुछ होना चाहिए था और एक्चुअल में कुछ और आउटकम हो गया?
मैंने देखा है कि बड़ी बार आप सोचते हो कि कुछ आप कहोगे, जो अगले बंदे का रिएक्शन ये ऐसा होगा, पर वो बहुत बार अलग हो जाता है। एक बार मतलब बहुत बार हुआ है, राइट। एक बार जब मैं छोटा था, मेरे से कुछ टूट गया, मैं ग्रैंडफादर के पास गया, उनको बता दिया तो उन्होंने बोला कोई बात नहीं। आई वाज लाइक शॉक्ड। आई थॉट कि लाइक वेरी अपसेट। बट बहुत बार होता है, जो जिस जिस तरीके से लोग रिएक्ट करते हैं वो आपके एक्सपेक्टेशन के अनुकूल नहीं होता है। और अदर वे ऑल्सो, मतलब कोई खास बात नहीं होती है तो लोग गुस्से हो जाते हैं। सो बोथ वेज आई थिंक।
दीक्षा, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे थे क्या? प्रियंका, दीक्षा। कई बार बच्चे टीचर्स के पास जाते हैं दूसरे बच्चों की शिकायत करने, एंड टीचर, उनको लगता होगा कि डांट पड़ने वाली है बच्चों को बहुत ज्यादा, बट टीचर काफी कामली उस चीज को संभाल लेती है और बिना किसी प्रॉब्लम के मैटर को सॉल्व कर देती है। तो आउटकम जो बच्चे सोचते हैं वो नहीं होता। लाइकवाइज जब अडल्ट भी कुछ सोचते हैं कि इस तरीके से बच्चा अगर वो किस बच्चे को किसी रीजन से मना कर दिए, फॉर एग्जाम्पल आइसक्रीम नहीं खानी, तो बच्चे ने बड़े कामली बोला ठीक है हम नहीं खाएंगे। पेरेंट्स सोचते हैं कि बच्चा जिद करेगा, बट एक्चुअली आउटकम उल्टा होता है, वो कामली मान जाता है। तो यस, आउटकम उल्टा होता है। यहाँ पे भी हमने देखा कि ये वाइल्ड एनिमल्स ने किस तरीके से किया रिएक्ट। एक छोटे से बच्चे को देख करके शेर जैसा जो एनिमल है, इतना ज्यादा वाइल्ड है, वो घूम करके चला गया, उसने उसे बिल्कुल भी हार्म नहीं किया। और भालू ने किस तरीके से, पहले तो वो डरा छोटा भालू, भालू का बच्चा, और किस तरीके से वापस वो, उसकी माँ ने आकर के एक्शन लिया। तो पूरा ही ये आउटकम के ऊपर है। सो वी कैन नॉट रियली प्रिडिक्ट द आउटकम्स। वो डिपेंड करता है आप किस मूड में है, किस माइंडसेट में है, और उस तरीके से हम आगे बढ़ते हैं। उस रात रामू ने अपने माता पिता और दादा को बाघ के बारे में बताया। उसने बताया कि कैसे बाघ ने उसे एक मादा भालू से बचाया था। इसके बाद तो बाघ की कहानियों का दौर शुरू हो गया। कुछ बाघ तो भले होते हैं, लेकिन कुछ बदमाश भी होते हैं। देखते ही देखते आदमखोर बाघों के बारे में बातचीत शुरू हो गई। दादा ने दो कहानियां सुनाई। उन्होंने कसम खाकर कहा कि वे सच थी, हालांकि उनके श्रोताओं ने उन पर आधा ही भरोसा किया। पहली कहानी इस विश्वास से संबंधित है कि आदमखोर बाघ अपने अगले शिकार की ओर इंसान की आत्मा के निर्देश पर बढ़ता है, जिसे बाघ ने पहले मारा था और खा लिया था। दादा ने कहा कि वास्तव में तीन शिकारियों को जानते थे, जो कि जो बाघ के मारे हुए इंसानों के पास मचान में बैठे थे। जब बाघ आया तो वह लाश उठाकर बैठ गई और दाहिने हाथ से पेड़ पर बैठे लोगों की ओर इशारा करने लगी। इसके बाद बाघ चला गया, लेकिन शिकारियों को पता था कि वापस आएगा। उनमें से एक आदमी इतना बहादुर था कि वे पेड़ से उतर गया और लाश के दाएं हाथ को अपने बगल में बांध दिया। बाद में जब बाघ लौटा तो लाश उठकर बैठ गई और इस बार अपने बाएं हाथ से आदमियों की ओर इशारा किया। क्रोधित बाघ ने पेड़ पर चढ़कर मचान में बैठे अपने दुश्मनों को मार डाला। और एक बनिया था। दादा ने एक कहानी शुरू करते हुए कहा, जो जंगल के एक गांव में रहता था। वह अपने कुछ पैसे वसूल करने के लिए एक पड़ोसी गांव में जाना चाहता था, लेकिन सड़क घने जंगल से होकर गुजरती थी और जंगल में एक भयानक आदमखोर बाघ रहता था। इसलिए बनिए को सूझ नहीं रहा था कि वो क्या करे। अंत में वो साधु के पास गया, जिसने उसे दो चूर्ण दिए। पहला चूर्ण खाने से वह जंगल के किसी भी अन्य बाघ से निपटने लायक एक विशाल बाघ में बदल सकता था, और दूसरा खाने से वह फिर से एक बनिया बन सकता था। तो आप लोग इस बात पे विश्वास करते हैं कि कोई चूरन खाने से या किसी साधु महात्मा के आशीर्वाद से आप एनिमल से इंसान और इंसान से एनिमल बन सकते हैं? क्या ऐसा पॉसिबल है? कि चूरन खाने से आप हो सकते हैं, या कोई मंत्र होता है, जादू करते हैं लोग, जिसके कारण हो सकता है? नो, मैं भी ऐसे ही सोचती हूँ, क्योंकि ये सब माइथोलॉजिकल टेल्स में चीजें अच्छी लगती है, बट रियलिटी में कई बार ऐसा होना पॉसिबल नहीं होता है कि हम कुछ खाए पिए। हाँ, हिप्नोटिज्म वगैरह हो सकता है, उसके कारण आपको कुछ और दिखाई पड़ सकता है। आप मदहोशी की हालत में कुछ परेशान भी हो सकते हैं, लेकिन ऐसा एक्चुअली होना बहुत ही मुश्किल है कि आप एनिमल से इंसान बन जाए या इंसान से ह्यूमन। ये दोनों ही बहुत ही ज्यादा मुश्किल वाली बात। बनिया दोनों बनिया दोनों चुन लेकर अपनी सुंदर युवा पत्नी के साथ अपनी यात्रा पर निकल पड़ा। वे जंगल में ज्यादा दूर नहीं गए थे कि रास्ते के बीच में बैठे आदमखोर पर उनकी नजर पड़ी। पहला चुन निकलने से पहले बनिया ने अपनी पत्नी से कहा कि वो जहां है वहीं रहे, ताकि जब वह बाघ को मारकर आए तो वह तुरंत उसे दूसरा चूर्ण उसे दे सके और उसे अपने पुराने आकार में वापस ला सके। बन बनिए की योजना कारगर नहीं, लेकिन एक सीमा तक ही। उसने पहला चूर्ण निकला और तुरंत एक शानदार बाघ बन गया। एक बड़ी गर्जना के साथ वह आदमखोर की ओर बढ़ा, और एक संक्षिप्त उग्र लड़ाई के बाद उसने अपने प्रतिद्वंदी को मार डाला। वह अपनी पत्नी के पास लौटकर आया तो उसके जबड़े में अब भी खून टपक रहा था। बेचारी पत्नी घबरा गई और दूसरा चूर्ण जमीन पर पटक। बनिया इतना गुस्से में था कि उसने अपनी पत्नी पर झपट्टा मारा और उसे मारकर खा गया। और बाद में यह भयानक बाघ फिर से मनुष्य न बन पाने पर इतना क्रोधित हुआ कि उसने देश भर में सैकड़ों लोगों को मार डाला और खा गया। दादाजी ने आंखों में चमक के साथ कहा, उसने केवल उन लोगों को बख्शा जिन्होंने उसे पैसे उधार दिए थे। एक बनिया कभी भी अपने कर्ज को डूबा हुआ मानकर नहीं छोड़ता। और बाघ को अब भी उम्मीद थी कि एक दिन वह फिर से इंसान बन सकता है और तब अपना बकाया वसूलने में कामयाब हो जाएगा। अगली सुबह जब रामू ने पिता के खेतों की सिंचाई के लिए इस्तेमाल किए जाने वाले कुएं से वापस आया तो उसने एक जीप और 3 बंदूकधारी अजनबियों को घेरे हुए जिज्ञासु बच्चे की भीड़ देखी। हर अजनबी के पास एक बंदूक थी। उसके पास 2 बैरे और बहुत सा सामान भी था। उन्होंने सुना था कि इलाके में एक बाघ है और वे उसका शिकार करना चाहते थे। उन शिकारियों में से एक, जो दूसरे से ज्यादा ही अजीब लग रहा था, एक बाघ को मारने के लिए अमेरिका से लाया आया। उसने कसम खाई थी कि वो बाघ की खाल लिए बिना देश नहीं छोड़े। उसने एक साथी ने कहा था कि बाघ की खाल तो वो दिल्ली से खरीद सकते हैं, लेकिन शिकारी ने कहा कि वो अपनी ट्रॉफियां खुद हासिल करना पसंद कर। इन लोगों के पास खर्च करने के लिए पैसा था और चूंकि ज्यादातर ग्रामीणों को पैसों की सख्त जरूरत थी, इसलिए वे शिकारियों की मचान बनाने के लिए जंगल में जाने को तैयार थे। उन्होंने महोगनी पेड़ की शाखाओं पर 3 लोगों के बैठने लायक काफी बड़ा मचान बनाया। केवल उसी रात शिकारियों ने मचान का इस्तेमाल किया था। मार्च के अंत में हालांकि दिन तो गर्म हो जाते हैं, लेकिन रातें ठंडी रहती हैं। शिकारी कंबल लाना भूल गए थे और आधी रात तक उन्होंने दांत किटकिटाने लगे थे। रामू ने उनके लिए पेड़ के नीचे भैंस का एक कट्टा बांध दिया और अपने घर जाने का दिखावा किया, लेकिन इसके बजाय उसने उस जगह के चारों ओर छोटे पेड़ों और झाड़ियों पर पुराने कपड़ों के टुकड़े लटका दिए। उसने सोचा कि उस पर बाघ का कर्ज है जिसे उतारना चाहिए। वह जानता था कि जंगल का चालाक बूढ़ा राजा अगर कपड़ों के टुकड़े देखेगा तो चारे से दूर रहेगा। आखिर वो जानता है कि जहां इंसान के कपड़े होंगे वहां इंसान जरूर होंगे। रात भर चौकसी की गई, लेकिन बाघ महोगनी के पेड़ के पास नहीं फटका। शायद वह भूखा नहीं था, शायद उसे रामू का संदेश मिल गया था। कुछ भी वजह रही हो, पेड़ पर बैठे लोग जल्दी वहां से चले गए। उन्हें बहुत ठंड लग रही थी। वे एक फ्लास्क में बारी बारी से रम पीते रहे। जल्द ही रम को खत्म करने का उद्देश्य उनके लिए बाघ को खत्म करने से ज्यादा बड़ा हो गया। पहले तो वे चुप रहे, जल्द ही वे कानाफूसी में बात करने लगे और जंगल के जीवों के लिए एक मानवीय फुसफुसाहट तो एक तुरही की ध्वनि के समान होती है। ज्यादातर जंगलों में ये देखा गया है कि काफी थोड़ी सी भी आप आवाज करो तो बहुत ज्यादा वो गूंजती है। तो इस तरीके से ये लोग भी फुसफुसाहट पे जो बात कर रहे थे, बहुत ही धीमे धीमे बात कर रहे थे, पर उसके अलावा भी उनकी आवाज बहुत ही ज्यादा शोर की तरह सुनाई पड़ रही होगी। क्योंकि शांति जब रहती है तो आवाज कुछ ज्यादा ही जोर से लोगों को महसूस होती है। जल्दी वे तीनों मस्ती में आ गए और खूब जोर जोर से बात करने लगे। जब सुबह की पहली किरण जंगल पर पड़ी और रामू और उनके दोस्त उन बड़े शिकारियों के लिए नाश्ता लाए, तो उन्होंने उन्हें मचान में गहरी नींद में पाया। गांव की ओर लौटते समय शिकारियों को घबराहट और शर्मिंदगी महसूस हो रही थी। इन इलाकों में कोई शिकार नहीं बचा है, अमेरिकन ने कहा। बाघ की शिकार के लिए ये गलत समय है, दूसरे आदमी ने कहा। पता नहीं देश किस ओर जा रहा है, तीसरा बोला। अब चूंकि वो शिकार तो कर नहीं पाए और बहुत ज्यादा शेखी बगार करके वो आए थे, तो इसलिए अपनी असफलता के बारे में तो वो बता नहीं सकते थे। तो वो अलग ही तरीके के पैमाने पे जा करके बताना शुरू कर दिए और सेल्फ क्रिटिसिज्म की जगह उन्होंने अलग अलग तरीकों को बांध करके समा बांध करके बताना शुरू कर दिया था। मौसम खराब, कारतूसों, ज्यादा रम पी लेने और बाघों की विकृति के बारे में शिकायत करते हुए वे चिढ़कर चले गए। गर्मियों की शुरुआत में एक ऐसी घटना घटी जिसने बूढ़े बाघ की शिकार की आदतों को बदल दिया और वह ग्रामीणों के साथ संघर्ष पर आमदा हो गया। लगभग 2 महीने से बारिश नहीं हुई थी और जंगल की लंबी लंबी घास सूखी और पीले रंग के लहराते समुद्र सी बन गई। जंगल के साफ कर दिए गए इलाकों में रहने वाले कुछ शरणार्थी खाना बनाते समय लापरवाह हो गए थे और उससे जंगल में आग लग गई थी। धीरे धीरे यह भीतरी इलाकों में फैल गई, जहां तीखी गंध और धुएं ने बाघ को जंगल के किनारे की ओर धकेल दिया। जैसे जैसे रात होती गई, आग की लपटें और तेज होती गई और उसकी गंध भी तेज होती गई। बाघ मुड़कर झील की ओर बढ़ा। वह जानता था कि यहाँ सुरक्षित रहेगा, बशर्ते वह तैरकर बीच के छोटे से टापू तक पहुंच जाए। अगली सुबह वह टापू पर था, जो आग से अछूता था, लेकिन उसका परिवेश बदल गया था। पहाड़ियों की ढलान जली हुई घास से काली हो गई थी और ज्यादातर लंबे बांस गायब हो गए थे। हिरण और जंगली सुअर प्राकृतिक आवरण का अपना बसेरा गवाकर पूरब की ओर भाग गए थे। जब आग बुझ गई और धुआं साफ हो गया, तो शिकार के लिए बाघ फिर से जंगल में आया, लेकिन उसे कोई शिकार नहीं मिला। एक बार उसे जले हुए खरगोश का शव मिला, लेकिन वह उसे खा नहीं सका। उसने झील का पानी पिया और एक छायादार स्थान पर जाकर सो गया। शायद शाम तक कुछ जानवर वापस आ जाए। अगर नहीं आए, तो उसे भी नए शिकारगाह या नए शिकार की तलाश करनी होगी। बाघ ने मारने के लिए उपयुक्त शिकार की तलाश में 5 दिन और बिताए। उस समय तक वह इतना भूखा हो चुका था कि उसकी पत्तियों के अवशेषों और पेड़ों के जले ठूंठों के बीच कीड़े और भृंग तक की खोज की। जंगल के राजा के लिए ये दुखद घटना थी, लेकिन अब भी वह इस इलाके को छोड़ने से झिझक रहा था, क्योंकि उसे आगे पूरब के जंगल के बारे में गहरा संदेश और भय था। ऐसे जंगल जिन्हें तेजी से इंसानी बस्तियां निगलती जा रही थी। वह उत्तर की ओर ऊंचे पहाड़ में जा सकता था, लेकिन वहां वैसी लंबी घास नहीं थी जिसकी उसे जरूरत थी। एक तेंदुआ वहां काफी अच्छी तरह से गुजारा कर सकता है, लेकिन एक बाघ नहीं। आखिर उसे घने जंगल की प्राकृतिक गोपनीयता से प्यार होता है। पहाड़ पर उसे हर समय छिपे रहना पड़ता। तो यहाँ पे हैबिटेट की भी बारे में बात की जा रही है और कंफर्ट की भी। एनिमल्स को भी अपना कंफर्ट बहुत ज्यादा पसंद होता है। वो इसलिए रिलोकेट नहीं करना चाह रहा था, दूसरी तरफ नहीं जाना चाह रहा था, क्योंकि उसकी जो हैबिटेशन है वो उसके लायक नहीं थी। उसे बहुत ऊंचे ऊंचे बांस के पेड़ चाहिए थे, काफी घास चाहिए थी, क्योंकि उसे सॉफ्टनेस काफी पसंद थी घास की। और छिप करके रहना तो उसे बिल्कुल भी पसंद नहीं था। आजादी का उसे बहुत ज्यादा ख्याल था। तो यहाँ पे उसको खाने की काफी चीजें नहीं भी मिल रही थी, उसके बावजूद वो थोड़ा हेजिटेंट था अपनी जगह को चेंज करने के लिए। पौ फटते ही बाघ झील पर आ गया। पानी अब उथला और मैला था और उसके ऊपर हरे रंग का मैल फैल गया था, लेकिन यह अब भी पीने लायक था और बाघ ने अपनी प्यास बुझाई। वह हिरण की उम्मीद में अपनी पसंदीदा चट्टान पर बैठ गया, लेकिन वहां कोई नहीं आया। वह उठकर जाने ही वाला था कि उसने किसी जानवर के आने की आहट सुनी। बाघ ने तुरंत अपने बसेरे में छलांग लगाई और खुद को जमीन पर चपटा कर लिया। उसकी पीली धारीदार त्वचा सूखी घास के साथ मिल गई। एक भारी जानवर झाड़ियों के बीच से गुजर रहा था और बाघ धैर्य से उसका इंतजार कर रहा था। एक भैंसा निकला और पानी में आ गया। भैंसा अकेला था। वह एक बड़ा भैंसा था और अपने लंबे घुमावदार सींग उसके कंधे के ठीक पीछे तक थे। वह बाघ की उपस्थिति से पूरी तरह अनजान था और बहुत इत्मीनान से पानी की ओर बढ़ा। बाघ हमला करने से पहले झिझक रहा था। लंबा अरसा हो गया था और कई साल पहले उसने एक भैंस को मारा था और वह जानता था कि गांव वाले इसे पसंद नहीं करेंगे। लेकिन भूख की पीड़ा उसकी हिचक पर हावी हो गई। सुबह की हवा नहीं चल रही थी, सब कुछ शांत था और बाघ की गंध भैंसे तक नहीं पहुंची थी। बास के पास पास के एक पेड़ पर एक बंदर चिल्ला रहा था, लेकिन भैंसे ने उसकी चेतावनी पर कोई ध्यान नहीं दिया। पेट के बल चुपके से रेंगते हुए बाघ झील के किनारे को पार कर गया और पीछे से भैंस के पास आ गया। जल पक्षी दोनों जानवरों की उपस्थिति के अभ्यस्त थे, इसलिए उन्होंने किसी को चौकस नहीं किया। कबीर आने करीब आने पर बाघ ने चारों ओर देखा कि क्या आसपास लोग या और भैंसे हैं। फिर उसने संतुष्ट होकर कि वह भैंसा अकेला था, बाघ आगे बढ़ गया। झील के किनारे उथले पानी में खड़ा भैंसा पानी पी रहा था। तभी बाघ ने किनारे से उस पर हमला किया और उसकी जांघ पर गहरा काट दिया। भैंसा लड़ने की ओर के लिए मुड़ा, लेकिन उसके पिछले दाएं पैर की नसें कट गई थी और वह केवल कुछ कदम आगे बढ़ सका। लेकिन वह एक भैंसा था, घरेलू मवेशियों से ज्यादा बहादुर। वह डरा नहीं था। उसने सूंघा और बाघ की ओर अपने सींग नीचे कर दिए, लेकिन वह बड़ी बिल्ली बहुत तेज थी। उसने भैंसे का चक्कर लगाते हुए उसके दूसरे पिछले पैर में काट दिया। भैंसा जमीन पर गिर गया। उसके पिछले दोनों पैर अपंग हो गए थे और फिर बाघ ने दोनों दांतों और पंजों का इस्तेमाल करते हुए भैंसे के गले में गहराई तक काट दिया, जब तक कि गले की नस से खून नहीं निकल गया। मरने से पहले भैंसे ने एक लंबी आखिरी आवाज दी। बाघ आराम करने के बाद अब अपना पेट भरने लगा, लेकिन कई दिन से भूखा रहने के बावजूद वह एक विशाल शव को खत्म नहीं कर सका। कम से कम एक अच्छा भोजन अभी बचा था। जब संतुष्ट और अपनी ताकत लौटते हुए महसूस करते हुए उसने झील पर जाकर अपनी प्यास बुझाई। फिर उसने भैंसे के अवशेषों को गिद्ध से छुपाने के लिए झाड़ियों में खींच लिया और सोने के लिए जगह खोजने चला गया। भूख लगने पर वह अपने किए शिकार के पास वापस आ जाता। एक भैंसा गायब होने पर पता चलने पर ग्रामीण शाम परेशान हो गए। अगले दिन जब रामू और श्याम ने दौड़ते हुए घर आकर ये बताया कि उन्हें झील के पास उसका शव मिला है, जिसे एक बाघ ने आधा खा रखा है, तो वे लोग और परेशान और नाराज हो गए। उन्हें लगा कि बाघ ने उन्हें बरगलाकर धोखा दिया है और वह जानते थे कि एक बार पालतू मवेशियों का स्वाद चखने पर उन्हें मारने की आदत बना लेगा। श्याम के पिता और मृत भैंसों के मालिक कुंदन सिंह ने कहा कि वे खुद बाघ का पीछा करेंगे। उनकी पत्नी ने कहा, बाघ के साथ तुम क्या करोगी? इस बारे में बात करना बहुत अच्छा है, लेकिन उन्हें कभी भी भैंसे को अपने आप नहीं जाने देना चाहिए। कुंदन ने कहा, वह पहले भी अपने दम पर बाहर गया था। यह पहली बार है जब बाघ ने हमारे किसी जानवर पर हमला किया है। जरूर महाराज में कोई शैतान घुस गया होगा। श्याम ने कहा, वह बहुत भूखा रहा होगा। खैर, हमें भी भूख लगी है, कुंदन सिंह ने कहा। इट्स ऑलमोस्ट 12:30। मैं देखती हूँ कितने पेजेस बचे हैं। अगर ज्यादा बचे हैं तो फिर हम अगली बार इन्हें पढ़ेंगे।
हाँ, देख लीजिए।
10 पेजेस अप्रोक्स और है।
हाँ जी, हाँ जी, फिर अगली बार पढ़ते हैं मैम।
तो चूंकि ये लास्ट चैप्टर है किताब का और 10 पेजेस अभी और दिखा रहे हैं, तो 15 मिनट तो करीब लग ही जाएंगी। तो इसके कारण अब हम इस चैप्टर को अगली बार में खत्म करते हैं। तो कोई कुछ कहना चाहेगा? ये जो बाघ की कहानी थी और छोटे और जानवर थे और जिस तरीके से फूड साइकिल के बारे में यहाँ पे बात हो रही थी, इसके बारे में कोई अपनी राय देना चाहेगा? आज सब कुछ ज्यादा ही चुप है, कोई बोल नहीं रहा है।
मेरे को भी ऐसा ही लगा।
कोई बात नहीं, चूंकि आप लोग नहीं कुछ अभी बताना चाह रहे हैं तो इसको रिफ्लेक्शन में मेरे लिए लिखिए और लिख करके भेजिए। और मिलते हैं अगले हफ्ते। थैंक यू एवरीवन, बाय बाय, टेक केयर।
बाय,
विशिंग यू
थैंक यू।
एवरीवन अ वेरी हैप्पी संडे। बाय सर।
बाय, थैंक यू।